list themselves as non-religious prior to committing the acts that they do. For instance, I will give you the 19 hijackers in the 9/11 attacks. The day prior to the attacks, they were going to strip bars and drinking alcohol. Okay, they did not go to the masjid. They were not part of the community. They were known to be extremely secular. There was a recent study done about ISIS. This is actually quite funny. You're going to laugh about this, but the majority of members from the Western societies joining ISIS, they found out what their main purchases were before they went overseas. And they found that the number one book that they purchased before they go overseas is Islam for Dummies. I'm not kidding you. The number one book that is sold to ISIS members before they join ISIS is Islam for Dummies. And most of them come from secular education, secular institutions. They have very little religious background. They know very little about their faith. And they go over there because, usually for political reasons, because of the prejudice they face in society, etc., and they try to validate it through religious justification. But most of the terrorists that have been caught or otherwise killed, or otherwise have joined groups like Al-Qaeda or ISIS, have typically been on the lower end of the spectrum of religiosity. I'll give you more evidence. They have found in Western societies that Muslims who study in madrasas or traditional Islamic education are less likely to join terrorist groups. They have also found that a current survey conducted about 2 years ago in the United States was asked among different religious groups in the United States, Christians, atheists, Jews, and Muslims, okay, is it ever justifiable to kill civilians? Is it ever justifiable to kill civilians? Muslims rank the lowest. Muslims in the community in the United States said no, it is never justifiable. They were the majority in the statistic to say this. Christians, Jews, and atheists were reported higher as suggesting that it was okay sometimes to do it, whereas Muslims said no. Okay. There are numerous statistics you look online, and I recommend going to a website. I should have put it up on here. It's called loonwatch.com. I'm going to spell it out to you. L-O-O-N, Loon. I know it's a strange name. You'll find out when you get there why it's called this. L-O-O-N, watch, like watch somebody, okay, or watch.com. It's a news site that tries to go against Islamophobia. They also conduct, or they also gather all the recent terrorism reports and surveys, etc. They found that globally, 98% of Muslims do not commit acts of terrorism or fanaticism. They found in the United States, 94% of Muslims do not commit acts of terrorism or fanaticism. And they found that the majority of people who commit acts of terrorism and fanaticism are actually, in fact, secular individuals. This is not to say that all people living in secular societies are bad. However, most of the reasons that people commit these acts of terrorism are for secular reasons. And I'll give you one more example. Suicide bombing was not created by Muslims. Suicide bombing was created by a group called the Tamil Tigers. They're a secular separatist group who use suicide bombing for political gain. Yeah, in Sri Lanka, most of them were atheists, by the way.
But before them, I think they were Japanese fighters.
They were?
The
the kamikaze pilots, yeah. Kamikaze pilots who worshiped their emperor, like Fraun, was worshipped, committed suicide for the sake of honor and to kill their infidels, So these things were happening way before Muslims even started doing it. And in fact, it's still a rarity in the Muslim world compared to other groups. So, in fact, the truth of the matter is that media has made this into a much bigger issue than it is because it needs an enemy. So it dehumanizes Muslims, it makes them look extremely bad, And it always tries to emphasize the worst elements of our society in order to perpetuate this idea that we're all evil or that we're all capable of terrorism, when in fact we actually rank quite low on that scale. In fact, ISIS is probably the largest fanatical group that has existed in quite some time, and even they are proportionately less likely to cause most violence than the United States. The United States is more capable of killing people than ISIS ever will be. And in fact, the United States has killed more people than ISIS in the past year. So, and I mean civilians, not soldiers. So, also, sectarianism. What is sectarianism? It means causing divisions, correct? Okay. Let me give you a hint. What do you think causes more division? Religion? Various religions claim to be true, right? Okay. Now, which society institutionalizes division? I'll give you... Huh? What? You didn't say anything? Okay, I thought you said something. Okay. In a traditional Islamic polity or an Islamic caliphate, okay, we have multiple systems of governance. One for the Muslims, several different ones for the non-Muslims. Is this correct? Yes, even criminal courts for different... Jews had one, Christians had their own, even Zoroastrians at one point had their own, etc., etc. The Ottomans exemplified this as well in the millet. So, however, secular societies impose one law on everyone. On everyone. Okay, despite your beliefs, regardless of your Muslim, Christian, Jew, regardless if you want this or that, they impose the same law on everyone. Some sort of civil law. So which one is more capable of causing problems? A system that allows different laws for different groups, or a system that imposes one legal standard on everyone for the worst offenses?
I will say one system, but Sharia.
The Sharia. Well, I mean, but so in regards to non-Muslims under a Sharia-run system, typically non-Muslims had much more freedom, not just in terms of how they believe, but in how they practice. And what I mean by practice is applying their religious views in a judicial manner.
Yeah.
Whereas in secular societies, we can't even whip people for committing adultery.
Yeah, but if you steal 2 ringgit slipper, you get same jail by either with the people who steal millions. So that's even more stupid.
That's even worse. And you get put in the same cell. You might have stolen like a candy bar, not a candy bar, but something like,
2 ringgit slipper.
A 2 ringgit slipper, okay. And then you go in and, there's a murderer you have to sleep with. It's like, why am I in the same location with this man? So it's a very unfair, it's unjust system in that sense. And secular societies have a very long history of violence. You can also see the French Revolution. I'm sure if you've read about the history of the French, it's probably one of the bloodiest revolutions in history, where they literally slaughtered thousands of clergy and religious people who don't follow the state. And it has occurred especially within even contemporary societies like the United States and Europe. We have countless riots, especially race riots. There's a lot of racial division because of cultural clashes, because of different religious beliefs. And that is because the secular ideologies tend to want to impose one law onto everyone. That is the principle, and it's usually humanistic sort of laws. Okay, and they may pay tribute to certain religions, like for instance, here, they may say, well, Islam is a religion of the state, but it doesn't necessarily play out that way, especially if you go to the courts, you'll notice that. So those are some arguments that you can use in response to this. So that was number 6. I believe that's the last one. And what time do we have? Okay, lovely. We have 4. So we have about 30 minutes. So I'm going to leave that to the audience then for question and answer sessions. You've asked enough questions. I'm joking. You can ask whatever you want. Okay. So if you would like to ask anything regarding the subject at hand, or if you would like to ask regarding anything else, I will. Is that for you or for me?
No, for you.
Oh, really? Thank you so much.
You ask me questions too.
Yeah, you want me to ask questions? Okay. So I am willing to answer. If you would like to debate some more, I'm okay with that too. Like I said, I take no offense. It's all a game to me. So please don't be shy.